In this 8 days course, we will learn about the various themes of the National Education Policy. You will learn about its implementation, and if you have any doubts, queries, observations, they will be addressed by the very, very eminent resource persons that have been contacted for this course by Dr. Aftab. Dr. Aftab himself, coming from the Department of Education, is also an eminent resource person, and I'm very grateful to him that he has coordinated this
Thank you.
NEP program for us. And for all practical purposes, he will be your anchor, he will be your guide, and he will take you through. So, participants, all I want to say is that
विश्वजीत दास जी म्यूट कर लीजिए जरा.
please be on mute. Yes, everybody. Please be present in all the sessions. And if you are not on mute and you are not listening to us, we will have to remove you from the meeting room, right? And please don't present your screen, because if you present your screen, then of course the resource person's presentation will be interrupted. And I'm very glad we have today with us Dr. Samina Salim Qidwai, an alumna of AMU, and we are lucky that she is visiting her parents here, based as she herself is based in the United States. Her detailed introduction will be presented by the course coordinator. I'm very grateful to you, Dr. Samina, for taking out the time to speak to our participants. And very soon we will be joined by many other course participants for this course. I hope your message for teaching and for adopting innovative methods for teaching will be found useful for everybody. So, Aftab bhai,
जी मैम.
it's over to you, not just for this session, but for the next 8
श्योर
days.
श्योर.
No, all
Thank
the
you.
participants are in very good hand. And I also take this opportunity, my dear participants, to put you in touch with Mr. Ziaul Hassan. As you can see, he is the technical coordinator and your technical help for managing everything uh, in this online course. So your WhatsApp group and your links for the classrooms and presentations and everything else, Mr. Zia is there to handle. So thank you so much and all the very best to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Dear participants, today we are having a very enlightened speaker. I will say the dynamic speaker, as already ma'am has discussed about uh, Samina ma'am. I have a brief introduction about Dr. Samina Salim Pedwai ma'am, that she is an American academic scientist. She obtained a PhD degree from India and conducted postdoctoral studies at the Karolinska Institute, Stockholm, Sweden, and University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston. After two postdoctoral fellowships, she secured an academic appointment at the University of Houston, where she leads a productive research program. Her lifelong goal is to study and advance the topic of health for vantage points of basic neuroscience, ethnic and racial context of society. Dr. Samina is the author of more than 80 peer-reviewed scientific publications with an accomplished record of scholarship and professional services. Uh, Samina ma'am is currently serves as a Fulbright specialist and plays an active role in students' mentoring activities and has mentored a number of graduates and undergraduate students. In addition, uh, ma'am has scientific pursuit and authored more than 30 op-eds, and she served as the advisory board of many non-profit organizations. And she is the funding presidents of Alex Care, a Texas-based 501c3 non-profit organization which delivers cancer supports to the underserved communities in India. Uh, Apart from her professional commitments and social cause, she writes poetry and enjoys music and traveling. Participants, you are lucky, including me. I will say that we are lucky that we are having, fortunately, ma'am, over here in India, and in general and in particular we are going to hear Dr. Samina ma'am about his own personal, I will say the international opinion about the topic. With these words, I would like to invite uh, Dr. Samina ma'am to please come on the dais. And now, ma'am, dais is over to you to speak on the topic. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, both Dr. Abbasi and Dr. Ansari, for your very kind introduction, and for the opportunity to be here and to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. So I feel like I was born to teach, and I was born to be with people. So I'm a people person, love to interact with students, love to interact with my peers, and teaching is something uh, that I feel like it's my calling. Um, and so I put all my energy and my passion into it. And today I intend on sharing the things that I have learned over the years that have helped me, which I have learned from my own peers and from my own teachers, and from my students. Actually, each year I find myself learning new things from my own students. And I'm always in the pursuit to modify and to change, to integrate and to modify my teaching methods. So, with that said, let me I'll give you I've divided my talk into.
Saminapa, I just wanted to tell you we are having issues with sharing your presentation. It's not coming in our email ID, and even Zayasab has failed. So,
Oh,
so maybe we can take it from you on a drive link or something later on. But
uh-huh.
probably today you can like speak to the participants by just seeing your presentation yourself and not sharing it.
Uh,
I know it's really difficult, but then this is
uh, I
technology.
will
It's
try
not
to,
happening.
yeah, that what
Yeah.
I'll try to do is, without having, I can share this PDF format later for everybody
Yes.
to have
Yes.
that. But
Yes.
for the purposes of the talk, I can just continue talking
Please.
without having, yeah.
Please. Please. Thank
Uh,
you.
so that should not be a problem. So let me begin uh, by just going back in time into what teaching was. With the back in the day, when the system was of a guru and of a saint who sits on this under a tree, or and just talks to the uh, or to lectures in a way to the students. So this that sort of the history of teaching is that was the authoritative style, where somebody would be sitting at or would be sitting under the tree, and the students would be just sitting in front of this authoritative figure who was almost in a sense worshipped. And this was a very authoritarian, a very saintly like person, very knowledgeable. You were not supposed to, the students at the time, or the disciples that more traditionally called, they couldn't question their teacher or their guru. So this was the authoritative style, where this was a very formal method of teaching, sort of a monologue, that one person stands and talks for hours and hours as the person pleases, and the students are just sitting down and listening. So this was more of a formal lecturing style, and this continued for years and years. So it took a long time for teaching to be where it is now. And to challenge this kind of an authoritative style of teaching was not easy. It's just like anything, no change is easily accepted by anyone. So initially, in the earlier days, when teaching became more interactive and teaching became more one-on-one, instead of being, when it became a dialogue instead of being a monologue. So the protest in the early days were that, the students today, some teachers back in the teachers conference of 1703, there was a comment in which the teacher said that the students today, and I quote this, that the students today cannot make bark to calculate their problems. They depend on their slates, which are more expensive. What will they do when the slate is dropped and it breaks? They will not be able to write. So if you think about it, what they're saying is that, um, so they're writing on the slate, and if the slate breaks, then what will they do? So this is sort of they're resisting the change to paper. So that's how the first resistance came. And then back in the 1850s, at the Principals Association conference, it was stated that students today depend upon paper too much. So first, they were criticizing the use of slate. Now they were criticizing the use of paper. They said they don't know how to write a slate without chalk, dust all over themselves. They can't clean a slate properly. What will they do when they run out of paper? So they were against paper. Then they came pens, the fountain pens, and so back in the 1914, uh, it was said that the students today depend on the expensive fountain pens. They can no longer write with a straight pen and nib. So we parents must not allow them to live in such a luxury, to the detriment of how to cope in the real business world, which is not so extravagant. So think about it, that now they were criticizing the use of slate, then they were criticizing the use of paper, and then when the fountain pens came, they were considered to be a luxury. And then came ink. So then they were against the use of ink in the teaching for the students. Then came ballpoints. So then ballpoints were again, this change also was resisted, and it was believed that this will ruin the education in our country, and that the students will use these ballpoint pens, and this will become very expensive, and so on and so forth. Anyway, so having gone through the different processes of resistance and change, some of the basic elements in teaching were preserved, and those elements were, uh, what is the objective of teaching? What is the content that is being taught? What is the methodology that is being used to teach? Then how is teaching assessed? What is the system of grading? How is it reported? And the personality of the teacher and the quality of the learner. So those were the basic elements in teaching that were preserved across these various forms of resistance in teaching. So the question is, what does learning, or in other words, where does learning occur? So there is a quote by John Wooden that I really like, and I often quote it myself, use this quote a lot, that you haven't taught until they have learned. So we can go on teaching for hours and hours, but if the person who we are teaching the material to hasn't learned anything, so it's a waste of the time, it's a waste of my time, it's a waste of their time. So where does learning occur? The learning occurs at the level of the student, okay? And the main the main thrust here is that we haven't taught well until the student has learned. So where does learning occur? It occurs in our lectures, it occurs in our discussions, it occurs in our homework problems, it occurs in case studies, it occurs in textbooks, it occurs in research, it occurs in group projects, it occurs in individual projects. And there's several stages, or there are several pockets where learning occurs. Now, as the teaching evolved from, and it changed from this sage authority, where the teacher, who was almost considered as a sage, or he or she, mostly he, they imparted information to a facilitator of learning. And this process then moved down to this authoritative style into this uh, collaborative style of teaching. And I really like to use the 5 C's of teaching analogy here. So the first is choice, the second is collaboration, the third is communication, fourth is critical thinking, and the fifth one is creativity. So those are the 5 C's of teaching in which a good teaching method depends on currently. And what I mean by collaboration in teaching, how do you collaborate in teaching? So collaboration in teaching means that you're collaborating with your student, right? So this is social in nature. Then how do you communicate? How do you communicate the concept that you're teaching to the students? And how you are collaborating with the student uh, in order to facilitate how they are perceiving that information and how they are receiving that information. And then once the content or the concept is introduced to the student, how do they use that information in problem solving or in critical thinking? And then how do they use that information to creatively interpret into creating another new problem? So this is how the teaching methods or teaching innovation has occurred. Now, there are several methods by which one can enhance one's teaching. So what I truly believe is that the best teachers that I have known, have operated as a guide rather than as a sage on a stage. So they facilitate, they help the learning. They deliver the content. Obviously, it's the responsibility of the teacher to deliver the content and the concepts that they're assigned to teach. But after they're done with that, their job is not done. Their job is to make sure that the content they delivered was received by the student. And that is what completes the circle. And if the circle is not complete, then the teaching is incomplete. So how do you facilitate the student learning? Now, there are several challenges to that. Uh, and it depends upon the size of the classroom. So if the teaching involves small classrooms, then there are some challenges and opportunities with small classroom teaching. If the classroom is large, meaning by classroom, I mean the strength, the number of students, then there are a separate set of challenges and opportunities for student learning. And I have myself learned greatly from the wisdom of my senior teachers. And I've always, and even to this day, after being involved in teaching at the University of Houston for the last 20 years, I always have my peers, at least one or two times, I invite them to sit in my classrooms and give critique to my teaching. And that has really helped me. So what is the basic to facilitate student learning? So the first thing is, what are the learning outcomes? Okay, that has to be really clear for the teacher. What are the goals for example, whatever the goal of the teaching course that you've been given. What are the objectives for that, learning objectives for that course? What are the competencies for curriculum? And what is the nature of the course and the learning activities? And there can be instructional activities for each outcome. Then how do you evaluate student performance, and how do you facilitate student progression and remediation if needed? So let's look at the first scenario. How do you improve student learning in a large enrollment classrooms? So the biggest classroom I've had is around 500 students. So this was an undergraduate course. And I'm in the College of Pharmacy, so I teach pharmacology courses. How do you keep collaborative environment in a large classroom, or let's say 200 or 100 or a 500 strength classroom? How do you do that? So that is a big challenge. So what I have seen from experience, and also not only my own experience, but also from the experience of my peers, is incorporating a mixed method approach is the best to promote student engagement as it fosters better learning environment. And this goes back to a general nature of as human beings. Variety is good. Flavors are better, right? We get bored of eating the same food. We get bored of wearing the same clothes, right? So we want variety in everything. What we ate for dinner, we don't want to eat the same dinner the next day, and so on. So this mixed method approach is very effective in large classroom sizes. So what is this mixed method approach? So first, of course, you'll have this the teacher-centered classroom, where you as a teacher will teach the concept and will deliver the content. But you can ask, you can split the classroom into smaller groups and assign them group projects. So that will be the project-based learning. Or you could flip the classroom, and you can have one group of students teach another group of students when you give them a problem. So those are some of the teaching methods that people use, which I use in large classrooms. Then technology. Now, the use of innovative tools and techniques to improve the efficiency or effectiveness of subject-centered learning experiences is really, really useful. So, and these technology tools should be used as much as possible. And what those tools are, I'll let you know in a little bit. Of course, PowerPoints, and those are some of the tools that are very effective. But in addition to that, clickers and using other examples I'll give you shortly. Then collaboration. So how do you facilitate this collaboration in a large classroom? Like I said, splitting the classroom into small groups can help. Flipping the classroom using technology and all of those tools could be used. Then the other very simple idea is to give breaks, is to pause the teaching. So if I could go on speaking for 30 minutes straight, I'm going to lose the attention of the students. So there is actually research that has advised us that for each 5 minutes of lecture, attention span decreases. Now, I've been speaking for the last 15 minutes. I'm sure some of you have dozed off. Some of you are doing something else on your phones or on your computers. So it is important to have to break that monotony. No one likes to hear someone speaking for an hour and a half without any pauses or any breaks. So how do you break? Uh, how do you pause that, um, or how do you grab that attention with these pauses? The easiest thing is to after you have introduced a concept, and after you have, to your satisfaction, delivered the content, I generally pause for 5 minutes, using that pause time to give real life examples. Or sometimes I just say, okay, time for a break. So, how was the weekend, everybody? How are you doing today? It's terribly hot today, or something like that, to keep the attention of the students, um, uh, you know, really strong, and to keep your relationship and your collaboration for that meeting, for that teaching hour. The other thing is, after giving, let's say, 30 minutes of lecture, I generally use the pause time to give take home messages. So I tell the students, if you have heard nothing from these 30 minutes of my lecture, this is the take home message that I absolutely want you to to take note, or to take notes on, or to note down. And those I call as the take home messages. What I do is, for which I don't use PowerPoints for take home messages. So I just go, and I tell them, depending upon, again, on the content, the take home message of this lecture is XYZ. Number one. The another take home message for for this 30 minutes of this lecture is XYZ. That's it. So by giving them 4 or 5 take home messages from 30 minutes of lecture, kind of breaks that monotony, and it gives them the if they have dozed off, or if they're drifted off in their thoughts, they can be back up up to speed on attention. Then comes active learning. So active learning is a big thing these days, and it is a great tool to not only keep the attention of the students, but it also helps the faculty identify difficult content. It helps the student better understand the content and appropriately apply the knowledge. So that is the second very important benefit of active learning. And then it helps the student acquire an assessment to gauge their own understanding of the material. And it makes the class time more interesting. It makes the class time more engaging and enjoyable. So, what are those active learning tools that I briefly mentioned early on? First is team-based learning, which we call as TBL. So team-based learning is that, based upon the content that you delivered, for example, I said the 30 minutes of content I delivered, and I gave them the take-home messages, then I give them a problem. Okay, and then I divide this classroom into different groups, and I tell them, this is the problem. The groups will discuss this and come up with the solution online. So they're doing all this on Google Doc, and they come up with the solution to this team-based learning problem online. So that is one thing. Now, skills cases. So that is something that we do in the discipline of pharmacology. This is also pharmacy. This is also done in the medical sciences. So we give them, let's say, if I'm teaching hypertension, or if I'm teaching diabetes. So now I give them a case about a patient, and I describe the patient, that this is a A 50-year-old female, she is overweight, she has high sugar, she has this, she has that, blood pressure, this. Can you prepare a diagnosis and a prognosis? Now, it can vary for different other disciplines. You can come up with your own skill case here. And so then again, the groups of students, they discuss based upon the content I have delivered, what is the prognosis, what is the diagnosis, and what kind of drugs are to be prescribed and things like that. The third thing is clickers, which is simple. Again, this is a clicker, is really, really efficient way of testing the knowledge of the students. So for clickers, all the students are distributed the clickers, and I give them a problem, and the clicker is linked to Poll EV, and I give a question. Either it is a yes or a no or a multiple choice question. The clickers record the responses of all the students, and then their assessment is is recorded. Other in-class activities can be the direct questioning and answering does not help in a large classroom setting. Then there are outside of the classroom activities also. For example, you can give them YouTube videos to watch that are relevant to the content that you're delivering. Then you can give them some you can use Blackboard or Google Doc communications also. Now there are some really nice active learning tools that are available. For example, wordmit.com. Wordmit.com has this really engaging classroom materials, which include crossword maker to create a fun alternative to the usual quizzes. I have seen that students really enjoy that, where I give them a crossword puzzle for, let's say antipsychotic drugs or something of that nature, or GI drugs, and I ask them to identify which drugs, solve this puzzle. So that is also lot of free software is available. Wordmint.com is what I use a lot. Then the other strategy that I use is think, pair, write. So it's very simple. I give them 60 seconds to think about a question that requires the students to use the information that they just learned that day in the class. And they ask them to pair up and discuss their thoughts. I allow them 2 to 3 minutes to do this. And then Blackboard discussion or Canvas discussion or Google Doc or Padlet, whatever it is that it's available to you through your institution, you can allow that for the students to share their thoughts, limiting that to 1 to 2 sentences or whatever you you see fit. And then at the end of your classroom, of your lecture, you can distill all that information. You can use every lecture, you can use something new. Some days you can use a combination, the mixed method approach, like I said. You could use take-home messages, you could use a YouTube video, or you could use Wordmint or flow charts, or whatever it is that you feel most comfortable with. But I try to use mixed methods approach just to keep a variety and to keep the attention of the students. And some whiteboard exercises I also have noticed are very useful, in which I invite the students to do this. So they sort of come into the Blackboard and they flipping the classroom. So they become the teachers now. So that is something that I've seen that the students really enjoy. Now, clickers, like I said, is a is a great way to engage a large classroom setting where this is an audience response system. And this is the classroom challenges, especially the large classroom challenges, can be met by using clickers, using both, especially it works for passive students. Not everybody in class is active, or not everyone likes to talk or to be identified or be called upon. So for those passive learners, it's a very safe and technology to sort of gauge, if they have understood the material that was covered, and especially popular with millennial learners who have laptops and smartphones and etc. So clickers is very, very useful. And the clicker questions have really helped me feel like I was participating, in their learning. Now, the in addition to clickers promoting engagement, they also help with the assessment, student assessment. They provide break in the lecture, etc. So I highly recommend that. Then some of the things that I do is that I use clickers, or I place the clickers very strategically, either in the early on in the lecture, which I use as a sort of, so first thing, for example, I do is a lecture on a Monday morning. So I will post a question on the screen and ask the students to use the clickers to answer their question, judging uh, their or assessing their information based on the lecture I delivered on Friday. Okay, so this gives me an idea if they remembered what was covered on Friday's lecture. So I do this, the first clicker question is on the previous lecture. And then I start my 30 minutes of lecture, and then I pause, I give a mid-lecture, I pause at the mid-lecture level and give them another clicker question, just sort of to compare or to understand and assess if they have understood what was covered in the first 30 minutes of the lecture. Then I use later in the lecture at the very end, which is a recall. So did they understand the important concept that was just presented? And are they able to apply what was just discussed that day? So early, the first lecture slide would be a clicker question. Then a mid-lecture slide would be a clicker question assessing if they have understood what was covered so far. And then later, the last slide could be a clicker question, which would sort of assess if they have understood the whole lecture. Then sometimes I use, which I call as the icebreaker clicker questions. So these are surprise questions. So I would just show them a video in class, a YouTube video, and I would say, so this is a person who has edema, who has trouble breathing, who has this and that, and she's overweight, she has lung disease, her kidneys, this and that. Can you tell me which disease she's suffering from, or something like that? So using these pop-up, YouTube videos as icebreakers, I found is very helpful. Which again, it becomes the classroom becomes collaborative, it becomes engaging, and it becomes flexible, and it doesn't become that monotonous. And I love this outside of class content idea too. Sometimes I just give them some YouTube links and I tell them to go in their own time, look at these videos and see if sometimes it facilitates in or it helps them understand the concepts. Then then some of the uh, challenges, these are the opportunities that I see in teaching. You know, all these technology and collaborations and team-based learning. Those are all the opportunities. Now, some of the challenges that we as teachers face is the technology that we are using. Sometimes it becomes our own impairment. For example, PowerPoint. I love PowerPoints, but overuse of PowerPoints sometimes, and I call it death by PowerPoint. It can be killing. I have seen PowerPoint slides that are so busy that it is impossible to figure out what is it that I'm supposed to focus my attention on. So overuse of um, overuse of PowerPoint slides, making busy PowerPoint slides is actually death by PowerPoints. And going back to this mixed methods approach, I try to incorporate, instead of just going slide by slide by slide, I just go 5 slides and then no slide, and then I'm talking to my talking to the students in a way that I'm not using any slides. So that takes that boredom away of the students. So now their attention shifts from the screen to the teacher. And that I have felt is very, very useful. So the classroom dynamics is very important. Um, and it is the three main focus that can facilitate a good classroom dynamics are content, delivery, and interaction. Of course, your content has to be superb. You're the master of or you have the best expertise to deliver the content. So your content has to be absolutely best. But your delivery has to be best too. Because if your content is good and if your delivery is just so damn boring that nobody will pay attention to. So the delivery is very, very important. It has to be seamless. Only then your content becomes enhanced. Then the interaction, how you interact with the students. If you just go to the classroom and you just blurt out all the stuff that you, then the students will not receive anything. Then the interaction is gone. There is no collaboration. So the content, delivery, and interaction, very, very important part of the classroom dynamics. Now, the authoritative classrooms don't work anymore. Just as we have evolved over time, the time has changed. Um, the same way, the classroom dynamics, the authoritative nature of classroom dynamics have changed quite a bit. Now, there are firm limits on what us as the teachers um, and also them as the students uh, that have been placed on us. So authoritative style does not work anymore. Discussion is encouraged now. Students, they're encouraged to ask questions as opposed to the previous authoritative style where there were firm limits on the students only. The limits were not on the teachers. The classes were normally very, very quiet. Nobody said a word except the teacher. The discussion was not encouraged. Students were just asked to follow directions. None of that, because I said so kind of rule does not work anymore. Now, um, in the in the in the present scenario, I'm not trying to say that there is no authority now. It's important to have, the teacher should have the authority so that there is no free for all. And, it's not the do your own thing kind of dynamics, but it's a nice balance. It's a nice balance, so the demands are on both the teacher and the students. And the students cannot be indifferent in the present good dynamics of a classroom. And 5 R's is what I describe, is they dictate better classroom dynamics or better classroom managements. Good rapport with the students, good routines with the students, and good relevance of the topic, good rigor, and good reinforcement. All of this make a great classroom dynamic for both the students and the teacher. Um, Now, what is the I'm telling you all these good dynamics. What are bad dynamics, or what is a poor classroom environment? How does a poor or an unhealthy classroom environment looks like? The first thing that comes to my mind is boredom. Students are bored because they're not challenged. Okay, and they see the lessons that are being delivered as irrelevant, and that the teacher doesn't care, or that the teacher doesn't understand fully. Full grasp of the knowledge is not there. So how do you create a positive classroom environment then? You have to have expectations of the students. That's the first thing. First, you deliver the content, you develop a great rapport with the students, but at the same time, there are some expectations that you have to set for the students. That, the communication has to be respectful, that the students have to be on top of their assignments, that the students have to be engaged, that they have to be attentive, and so on and so forth. All of those things create a positive classroom environment. Then a very important aspect is that this you and me against the material is something uh, that is somehow needs to be avoided. That it's not me versus them and the material. All of us, the students, the teacher, and the material, have to be on the same side. So this sort of approach is the one that works best. So that the teacher is like a coach and is not a judgmental rater. Okay, so the teacher is assisting the student in learning, and in generating interest. So some of the practices of star teachers, there was a very nice article that I would highly recommend you to read, is what are the practices, and it highlights what are the practices of star teachers. The first thing, that is listed there is generate interest. If I have generated interest in my student, that is my success. That's how I see it. And if they listen, they hear, and they remember, and that is another successful practice of a star teachers. Then demonstrate empathy for the students. And what I mean by this is understand the teacher's understanding, the where the students are coming from. What is their level of understanding? What me as a teacher have to give them so they can understand better? And those are some of the things that create a better teaching environment in this. How am I doing in terms of time? Can somebody tell me? It's 4:35 right now. How much more time I have?
We have 30 minutes more.
I have 30 more
Uh,
minutes.
yes.
Okay. So is everybody?
1 hour, ma'am, for your lecture and 30 minutes for discussion.
I see. So for lecture, how much time I've left?
You have, ma'am, 30 minutes more for lecture even.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I just want to make sure everybody is following. I'm just not, everyone's good following what I'm saying. Does it make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
It is great.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So the next thing I want to say, I want to share is, as teachers, what are we doing here? What is the goal? Obviously, we are sharing our expertise and our knowledge with the students so they understand and they can practice. But also, our goal is to prepare our ultimate gift to our students is how well we prepare them for the marketplace. So one day, what they're going to do with their degree, how good of a doctor they become, or how good of a teacher they become, or how good of a entrepreneur they become, depends on how well we have taught them. So we are ultimately preparing them for the marketplace. And so how do we inculcate that, or how do we best prepare them to for the marketplace? So the first thing that comes to my mind is to, I consider myself or whoever is teaching the subject as the subject matter expert. So my goal is to have my students become the next subject matter expert. Okay. So and how can I ensure that they have become the subject matter experts? That again goes back to problem-based learning, clicker questions, team-based learning, all these extra outside of the classroom tools that you've given them, which will help them understand the different uh, the different methods in their teaching. Now, as a teacher, how do we continue? We are obviously having the students, we are facilitating their learning. We have equipped them with different tools that they can use to understand more. But how do we, as teacher, continue with our learning? And that also is very, very important part of innovation in teaching, because I have heard, and I have actually frankly seen teachers who do not update their slides, who do not update their lectures. The lectures that they gave 5 years ago, they're still giving those same lectures. They're still using the same examples. I mean, some of those I understand it's important. Um, some of the slides will not change. So that's okay. But it is important to update our lectures. It is important, very important, to be on top of our game. So we have to make sure that we read up on the latest advances, because nothing is more boring or is more harmful than the students not respecting the teacher because of the lack of their effort. So the first thing that I myself do every semester is to try to revise my PowerPoint slides, or try to revise my lectures, to update them so that the students know that this is a serious, passionate teacher who pays attention to what she's talking about. She's on top of her game. She's putting in the effort to go look for resources. All the time these online tools are getting updated. Like I gave you the example of this word mint, the crossword puzzles and all that. uh, all kinds of softwares are available. So if the students see that the teacher is making the effort of incorporating new tools in the teaching, in the lectures, the students appreciate that. So that is one thing I highly recommend, is to incorporate the innovative teaching tools, update the lectures, update teaching methods, and use different methods. So have a variety. The other thing is peer review. This is something that we as teachers are very nervous about, or we're very afraid of being judged by our own peers. So one thing that is commonly done in the United States is that faculty members are evaluated yearly. They have annual evaluations on their teaching, on service, and on research. So teaching evaluations, all the students evaluate their teachers. Those evaluations are anonymous. So I, as a teacher, won't know which student has provided which comments about my teaching. So some people tend to take that very negatively. But to me, feedback is very important for improvement. Because if I don't get the feedback from the students, then I won't know how to improve my teaching. And as a rule, no one is perfect. We all make mistakes. No one is the best model teacher. We are always improvising. We're always learning or improving. So teaching evaluations by the students is one method to improve teaching. The other is peer evaluation. So peer evaluation is a way where you invite your colleagues to sit in your classroom, hear your lecture, and provide written comments to your teaching. That again is that level of evaluation is coming from your own level of your peer evaluator. So this is not a student evaluator, but this is a peer evaluator, someone who has comparable experience and comparable knowledge and information. That I feel is an excellent tool um, to help improve the teaching methods or the teaching styles. The other very easy and very easily adaptable method to evaluate our own teaching is to record our lectures. So you can, these days, Zoom and Google and all these Teams and all these platforms, online platforms, enable give us the opportunity to record our own lectures. So what you can do, and what I still do, even though I've been teaching now for the last 20 years, I still do that. Sometimes I record my own lecture, and I listen to the whole thing. I pause it and I say, wait a minute, what was it that I just said? That didn't make sense. This is so confusing. So I become my own critique. So I am criticizing my own lecture. And believe me, when criticism comes from you, it is much easier to handle than when it comes to the students or from the peers. So that is again a very useful. It's time consuming, because you will have, if it's a 1 hour lecture, you will give 1 hour lecture, you will record it on Zoom or Teams or Google Meet or whatever it is that you online platform you want to record, and then listen to that. And then as I'm listening to my own voice in my own lecture, I start writing notes, that this was this didn't make sense, or this needs to be, I need to explain this a little bit more, this needs to shorten, I need to include an online tool here, I should put a clicker question here, I should put a surprise quiz here, or something or the other. So that I feel is a great tool for to assess our teaching methods. I think that's all I have in my, and I apologize for not being able to share the PowerPoint with you, but I will make a PDF format in PDF, and I will share that with you so that you can have this information with you, and hopefully that can assist you in modifying or in hopefully in improving your lectures and in the content delivery. Which if I'm not able to send that via email, I will share it in a Google Doc. And I think I will stop here. And again, thank you for your attention. And now I'm happy to take your questions. As Dr. Aftab Ansari just mentioned, we'll have some time for a discussion. So I'm
Sure, sure. Participants, I would like to invite you. If you have any query or questions regarding ma'am's lecture, you can ask over here and you can discuss. Participant, now over to you.
So
वीरू राजभर जी कुछ पूछना चाहते
Ma'am,
हैं?
ma'am, thank you so much. It was a great lecture. I learned a lot from it. Ma'am, I have a question. Ma'am, I'm an assistant professor in Uttarakhand, ma'am.
uh-huh,
And I am posted at a place where I teach the students mostly from village
uh-huh.
area.
Mhm.
Ma'am, when the students come to my class, ma'am, I face a serious challenge, a major problem, and
Mhm.
it is, ma'am, the students are very weak uh, in terms of knowledge, actually, and their language is also very poor. So when I teach them in English, since I'm the teacher of English literature and English language, so ma'am, they fail in understanding me. And when I come up to their level, so what happens, ma'am, I am not able to complete the syllabus. I know that it is not necessary to complete the syllabus, but ma'am, it is what happens, I find a kind of gap between the students and me. So in this case, what I should do?
So that is a tough one. What you can, I can, and since you're English literature teacher, I understand the problem that how do you, and English literature is very, very deep. So which level of students are these?
Ma'am, they are from BA Part 1, BA Part 2, BA Part
I see.
3, means graduation, ma'am.
Graduate level, yeah, or undergraduate. So just by, listening to the problem that you're describing, one option could be that, and again, I'm just thinking on my feet right now here, is that you can ask the students themselves. So how you should teach them.
Okay.
So they can be your, put the onus on them.
Yes.
So for example, I want to teach you, let's say, Keats, okay?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
Keats has this I'm just making it up. I can't recall any of Keats' work right now. But so you can say he talks about rains and this and that. How can I teach this to you? Do you have any suggestions? Or can you all read up on this?
Okay.
Before coming to class, you can give them whichever, let's say if you are giving them Keats to teach. So can you at least expect them to come to the class prepared?
Okay, ma'am.
So if they come to the class and they've already read up at least a little bit, so then they're not starting on completely, ground zero. At
Yes.
least they have gained one ground that they're familiar with this chapter or whatever you will be talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
So that is one thing that comes to mind, that you can assign them something ahead of time. So
Okay.
before you have even taught them, and
Yes.
then before starting the class, you can ask them,
Okay.
so what is it that you have yourself learned? So this is like challenging them, putting the onus on them.
Okay.
And obviously they won't be able to uh, you know fully or wholly understand this,
Mm.
but at least you will get an idea. You will force them to read, and then you will also force them to express. And
Okay, ma'am.
then you can start your actual instruction, or your actual teaching. Does that help? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I would like to add something more to it.
Uh-huh.
Ma'am, before the introduction of NAP syllabus here,
Uh-huh.
there used to be one paper on language, which I used to teach from basic level. I used to teach language or grammar from basic to the advanced level, ma'am. So in that case, students were able to understand me slowly and slowly. But since it has been introduced, the the language syllabus has been removed from the NAP. So, ma'am, language issue is one of the major problems over here. So, in that case, how can I adjust with the language of the students, ma'am, if they do not understand or if they make a lot of mistakes?
Yeah, so that is a technical question, and I don't feel I have the all the information to be able to address that fully. So that is something, I'm not familiar with the current Indian instructional syllabus, and so I'd have to look at that to fully. So I'm afraid I cannot fully address that question.
But
Okay,
ma'am,
okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
ma'am, you have given, I think that will be more suitable in that village context.
Hmm.
If the student will be able to study before and well before the lecture of the Viru sir, so I think the most of the problem will be solved
Hmm.
Okay.
if they prepare from their home. So I think, sir, ma'am, sir will announce that tomorrow I will teach this topic. So kindly you read it out once or twice, and then you come in the class.
Thank you so much, sir. I will follow it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. So there is a question in the chat from Dr. Nasir Aziz Anjum. There are teachers who actually don't encourage the new or modern teachers to make the class interactive and or collaborative. Please comment on how to overcome this type of thinking. Yeah, so there is resistance to that. And like I said in the beginning, there has been resistance to slate, to paper, to fountain pen, to ballpoint. So the resistance continues. And the teachers who do not encourage a collaborative, interactive environment are not successful teachers, right? So the best way to bring about a change is to embody that change. So if more and more teachers become interactive, if more and more teachers become collaborative and encourage student engagement, then the teachers who are not will become a minority, and slowly they will phase away. So I wouldn't worry about the negative perception, but one thing is that is that to incorporate active learning in the curriculum. That is one way to enforce interactive and collaborative environment in the classrooms. If it is part of the curriculum and if the teachers are evaluated, then they will be forced to incorporate or integrate this in the curriculum. So I think Dr. Nasir Aziz has raised a hand.
Nasir Aziz, do you want to say something? I think, ma'am, we got her answer.
Yeah, I think I just answered the question. Anything else? I see the raised hand.
Hi, ma'am. I'm Dr. Barkha. Though the lecture has been very interesting and enlightening for last more than 1 hour, I have a question, ma'am. Ma'am, I have
Sure.
been having a very bad experience in my classroom, though I have been teaching for last 24 years. As in the post-COVID academic landscape, the students may not fully engage with the traditional instructions because they
Hmm.
now have the abundance of platforms created by the teachers during the pandemic. So,
Right.
what should we do in such a situation?
Yeah, it's a problem and it's a global problem, but we have to force it. We have to force interaction. There is just no other way. And the way to force it is sometimes, so my classrooms, for example, are 120 students. The students hate being called upon. But one way of enforcing that is I just, Mr. So and so, can you address this? Or what do you think about Mr. So and so about this problem? Um, Force them to have face-to-face interactions. Like you said, there are so many online platforms and they have become so comfortable being in this virtual situation that they, and with all these chat GPT and all these AI based formats, that's added another layer of problem. So I think the only way to engage them is to force the engagement by challenging them with questions, by
Yeah.
challenging them with having problem based questions or skill cases or whatever. Put the onus on them, but they will only take it seriously if we as teachers come prepared. If they see that this person means business, this person is serious, is passionate, then that passion is very contagious. It becomes part of the classroom. You will see the students, and I've myself noticed it sometimes. When I'm not very well prepared, and when I'm just like, okay, I'll just get by, I'll just get the class over with. If I'm stressed about something or too busy on with something else on my mind, and I can feel it that I didn't do a good job, and that is evident in the students. They seem less engaged that day. So the passion comes from us. If we are passionate, if we are prepared, the students will respond with vigor, with energy. So, but going back to your question, I completely understand where you're coming from, and the only way to overcome or to mitigate that COVID psychology is by forcing interaction.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more question, participants? Or we should end here? I think, ma'am, there is no more questions.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your nice deliberation. And the most important thing was that it was very simple to understand the participants. And that's why the questions are very less, I think so. Congratulations, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And again, thank you so much for the invitation. And good luck with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Respected Aftab sir, I have a request, in fact.
जी,
Sir,
बताइए.
Sir, I'm the teacher of English, so I understand English, but some of the participants in the group are
Yeah,
also from Hindi background. So, if the lectures in the coming days, sir, in both languages, Hindi and English, are bilingual method, so that will be very
sure,
accessible
sure.
and
We
good,
will
sir.
consider that also.
Yeah, okay, 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 sir.
Actually, we will consider that. We know
Okay,
that we have the heterogeneous group from different parts of India.
yeah, yeah,
So we
sure, sir.
also take, because some of these participants are from Northeast, they are not able to understand pure Hindi and Urdu. So
Yeah,
we will
sure.
see.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Participants, you will join with the next lecture with new link. You have already been shared in your group. Now you may leave now and you join for the next lecture with the new link. Thank you very much.